Hello, and welcome to this online session, Harnessing Stakeholders' Knowledge to Support Development for Climate-Smart Soil Management. My name is Saskia Visser, and I'm the host of this session for this 1 hour. Why this session? Well, both the communications on the EU soil strategy for 2030 and the sustainable carbon cycles rely on the development of knowledge. Not only the development of knowledge, but also making that knowledge available for those who need to use it, need to manage the land. And therefore, close interaction with stakeholders is needed. Not only when the knowledge is ready to apply in the field, but also already upfront in defining the right research questions. The European Joint Programme, Agricultural Soil and the Climate Change, has developed a tool, which is the National Hub, that allows stakeholder input into the development and implementation of the knowledge framework for climate-smart sustainable soil management. Today, this session will kick off with a presentation by my colleague Anna Besse, and she will explain something about the National Hub, the EGP soil, and how stakeholders interacted and contributed to develop that knowledge framework. And from there, we move to a panel discussion. And I'm very pleased with my great panelists that I have over here. Christian Holzleiner, head of the Unit for Land Economy and Carbon Removals. Gerben Zijlstra, Policy Advisor Soils at Cumula. And we will discuss together a little bit on the sustainable carbon removals. And from there we move to the soil mission. And for that we have Kirsten Rosenau here in the studio, head of the unit Research and Innovation at DG Agri, which also provides the secretariat for the soil mission. And online we have the participation of Diego Intriglio, who is representative of the Spanish Research Council and owner of the EGP Soil, program owner of EGP Soil. Well, I think this promises to become an interesting session, but let's move first to the Slido, because I'm very curious who is in our audience. I hope you have all connected to the Slido, and I would really like to hear from you. Who are you? Are you more general public? Are you a policymaker? Are you a farmer advisor maybe? Are you part of industry related to soils? Or do we have maybe some scientists on the floor? Well, so far we have a lot of general public available on our online session. There it starts to become a little bit more diverse. We have some scientists in the floor. Very much looking forward to also maybe later on some policymakers or farmer advisors will join, because I'm very curious to hear also your sessions moving into this sessions. And there they are, the first farmer advisors. Well, thank you very much for contributing to this session. And there are more people started to log in, and here we see a little bit more diversification in our audience. So it takes a little time for people to connect to Slido. Please stay connected to Slido, because throughout this 1 hour session, we will have several questions for you to ask. And we will have also the opportunity for you to ask questions to our panelists and also to the presenter. It looks to become more and more diverse already, the participants. Let's move from here to Anna Besse, to the presentation about EGP soil. Anna, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Saskia. Today I'm going to show you how we tackle science to policy interface within EGP soil program. And I would like also to recognize the contribution of my colleagues from the EGP soil coordination team. Next slide, please. So soil needs are stakeholder and region specific. On the images here, you see the examples of the situations where soils cannot provide ecosystem services to the users because they are not well managed. And you see that these examples are very diverse because they're dependent on different regions. So for example, the trees here, they will probably not survive because of the soil erosion. Or this valley is flooded because the soils cannot provide retention capacity in the flood in the catchment. Next slide, please. So yes, the soil stakeholder engagement is very crucial. And if we want, well, I will show it to you today. And if you want to avoid disasters, you would need to have good sustainable soil management implementation. And if you would like to support regenerative agricultural practices, then you would need to make good policy. Next slide, please. EGP Soil is a European joint program on climate-smart sustainable management of agricultural soils. It's a 5-year program of 80 million euro that started in 2020, and 24 countries, European countries, are participating. It is funded for one half by the European Commission through the Horizon 2020 program, and for the other half by the national funders. So it means that by definition, we are really urged to provide alignment between the countries, research between the countries, but also align the European and national levels. Next, please. We have developed a knowledge framework for the crossing of the 3 realms, the agricultural production, sustainable environment, and climate change adaptation and mitigation. But we do not only develop knowledge in this program, we also share and transfer knowledge, for example, capacity building and exchange of scientists between the soil labs. We also do on knowledge harmonization, organization storage, such as harmonization of soil monitoring systems between the member states. And also very important one, we do knowledge application for policy development in Europe and also for farmer advisor sector. Well, we have, so how do we do it? We have made a subset of key stakeholders in different countries, for 24 countries, and developed and established national hubs. So what do national hubs do there? They provide feedback, they voice national position and needs, and they contribute to and learn from the work done in research in our program. Altogether, the national hubs comprise stakeholders of about more than 350 participants, primarily consisting from the national policymakers, research community, farmer and farmer advisors, but also other, a whole range of stakeholders. Altogether, well, we made an inventory of their perception of agricultural soil challenges in their countries. So when we look at it, there is a whole range of challenges, and the most important one is the increase of soil organic carbon. But when we also see that the distribution of these challenges it's not uniform through Europe. If we plot these challenges through across pedoclimatic regions in Europe, we see that there are differences. For example, salinization is more an issue in the south of Europe, and the nutrient deficiency is more a problem in the northern part of Europe. So what do we do with all this information? We have combined this inventory of soil challenges and aspirations together with knowledge availability and use, and barriers and opportunities. That's what we collected from the national hubs. We also did an extensive literature review and did also broader stock takes with a broad stakeholders. And altogether, this information provided us, next one. Yes, provided us information for a research priorities roadmap. From that, from this research priorities, we identified a series of projects within EGP Soil, 44 projects. And at the end of EGP Soil, we'll be repeating this exercise to produce a 10-year roadmap. This 10-year roadmap will feed to the EU soil mission and also provide a research agenda for agricultural soil research for the next 10 years. And we hope that it will also provide an alignment between European and national research agendas. If we look at the topics of the research projects, we see that our projects that deal with climate change mitigation, they are essential for the development of the, next one please, for the European carbon removal certification framework that is being developed at this time, and also our work on the indicators on how to monitor and how to manage soils. Next one, please. They contribute to the European Soil Monitoring Directive. Next one. So how do our national hubs function? No one size fits all. So it differs per country. Some of the countries, national hubs were built there based on the pre-existing committees, whereas all others were new. Also, the level of activity is different. In some countries, we have national hub meetings once a year. In other countries, 2 or more times a year. So after 4 years of EGP Soil, we very much appreciate the input of national hubs. We can commend them for providing information for the European research agenda. And they are also appreciated for sharing the knowledge that we create in EGP Soil through their own networks. And it's also good to see that there are discussions going on within the national hubs that are very useful for the European and national policies. So the conclusions are, soil needs are stakeholder and region specific. Stakeholder involvement in policy development is essential for its successes. And National Hub is a good instrument for national and soil mission needs. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Anna. I think that was an interesting overview of the potential of national hubs and stakeholder involvement. I would like to go a little bit to Slido because I'm curious to see what the audience is actually thinking of what could be the contribution of stakeholders to facilitate successful policy development and implementation. So if you open Slido, you can provide your answer it's going to be a word cloud. So I'm really looking forward to hear your ideas of what can different stakeholders contribute to facilitate successful policy development. As you know, it's a word cloud. So if you put in one word, it will become bigger the more and more you are connected and involved to it. So while the people are filling this out, and we come back to it, come back to that poll later when we have some participants actually typing it in. I would like to move already. Oh, here we have the first answers. They help policy. Yes, indeed. Pressure. Okay, here we get some words coming in. Experience. I think indeed the experience is a very important word in this whole cloud. Activism. Maybe while we wait for the word cloud to be filled, let's go to the first part of the discussion. And this is a little bit an interaction between you, Gerben, and Christian. Welcome to this session. I would like to start with Gerben. Gerben, you are a policy advisor at Cumula and you are a member of the Dutch National Hub.
Yep.
Can you tell me a little bit about your work at Cumula and then also tell me why did you accept actually to become a member of the National Hub?
Yeah, Yes, of course, Saskia. First of all, Cumula, I'd like to explain to the viewers what we are. We are an association of Dutch agricultural contractors, but also contractors that are active in earth moving. So we we provide knowledge towards the contractors, but we also try to represent their interest towards local and national government, and also towards research. And about 5-6 years ago, the board has decided in the same time span as the European Year of the Soil that we need to focus more on sustainable soil and sustainable soil management. And that's why we focused our work towards trying to be a sort of linking pin between the practices, the day-to-day practice of agricultural contractors with machines on farms, and the knowledge from research, but also how can we provide a good set of rules and regulations that help farmers and contractors in their in the challenges towards sustainable soil management. So that's what we do, and that's what I do within the Cumula organization. We joined the EUP Soil Project National Hub because we are participating in a lot of national PPP, so the private-public participation projects, especially around soil, and in a little. The EUP is closely connected to those national research programs and demonstration, and we like to give our input from the daily practices of our members towards the researchers and policymakers. That's why we joined this program.
Thank you. So, and when it comes to carbon farming, where do you see some concerns, or where do you have some needs? And
well, carbon farming is still in early development. We see a lot of challenges in the fields. For example, this fall we had a record rainfalls, so we need to have a sort of understanding of what lies ahead, and climate change, climate mitigation. How can we change the way we work the soils towards mitigating those challenges? And carbon farming is something new. It may be something for the future as a sort of income stream for farmers. And we are curious how policy and rules, and also the research and development can help contractors and farmers towards maybe sequestering more carbon in the soil that helps both the climate but also their soil quality and maybe possibly the yields in the long term. So we are interested in what we need to achieve those goals, and in the day-to-day practice we see rules and regulations that are contradicting each other. So you want to provide more forms of biomass towards solid organic matter, for instance, but that's not allowed, or it's only limited allowed. And well, that's why we like to give our opinion about those rules, and try to input those to the policymakers.
Maybe that relates a little bit to the word hope that I see now coming up on this active poll. So let's move to you, Christian. Your unit is currently developing a framework for carbon farming. Can you explain a little bit why Europe sees the need for such a framework, and And how will you address, these concerns and the issues of the ground workers? That's
Yes, I mean, we've in Europe a lot of experience with carbon markets, the emission trading system for the energy sector, for the heavy industries. Now we are rolling it out to road transport and to buildings. And now we're also interested to see, okay, could that be a good financing mechanism for agriculture, for better soil management, so to reward those farmers, those land managers that take the extra step in storing more carbon in their soils, but possibly also in the above ground biomass. Agroforestry, I think, is also something very, very promising. And what we understand from the side of the markets is you need to have a well-defined product. Because someone who wants to invest in carbon removals, they don't have all the knowledge that you have and that you need to have. They want to be assured is, okay, if I put there my money, am I doing something good for the climate? And this is what we want to provide with the certification, with the framework we are working on. So we want to build trust, confidence, so that the ones who invest know how much carbon is stored for how long, how sustainably is it done. And then if we manage that well, we can hope that we can mobilize more money, more funds, private, public, into a sustainable agriculture.
okay. So I think that's very interesting, these words of trust, because, in here I see activism in the word cloud coming up, emphasizing the needs. A reliable framework, Gerben. How important and trust and credible certification, how important are those words for the people that you represent? And what would you additionally maybe need from such a framework?
Yeah, trust is key to a functioning market, and you on the long term you need to have a sort of sustainable legislation that doesn't change every 5 or 10 years, so that because farmers are planning in the long term, the crop next year or the crop 2 years or the crop 5 or 10 years. And also measurements that you put towards sequestering carbon are slow-term processes. So it takes a long time to build up soil carbon. So you need to have a sustainable set of measurements and set of incentives towards achieving those goals. And you really want to work together in the whole chain, and not only the farmer on his land, but also all the actors around that farm, advisors, policymakers, local government, regional governments, towards a same goal. And that's really important, that the farmers and the farms and also our members, the contractors, have that trust in building up those levels of soil carbon, and maybe achieve, besides the financial rewards, but also have a better soil health and soil quality, and stay on top of all the yields and provide high quality good food to the European people.
Can you relate to that in these points here, the additional needs, not only carbon, but a little bit more than that?
Of course, very much so. And it is what we want to achieve is, of course, to unleash all this innovation potential.
Yeah.
It is, as you rightly say, it's not only the farmer, but everyone around. So it's a whole ecosystem that we need to motivate. And I think one of the advantages, if we talk about carbon, about CO2, is we know relatively well how to measure it. And also investors, as we have already been developing several carbon markets, understand what is a ton of CO2, and that we need to get them out of the atmosphere and store them in the soils, in the forests. So making it measurable I think is so key, because we don't have the knowledge. We can tell every farmer in Europe what to do. Finland, Spain can't be much more different. So if we manage to get the costs of soil sampling down, if we manage to make it more reliable, then we really have a very good incentive for across Europe to provide the incentives that every farmer, every land manager does what he knows best with their land. And this is where we want to go. Of course, there are still challenges. And this is like while the soil mission is so important in getting the measurement right, the monitoring, reporting, verification, as we say it. And probably in the beginning, we need to rely more on measuring, observing activities, but we need to get really to a result-based system, because it just provides the better economic incentives.
Yeah. So you intend to move from practice to results, to measure, to actually measure it, being able to measure carbon. So, and then there is big diversity across Europe.
Yes.
And for instance, the efforts that it will take to put a ton CO2 in the soil in Spain on the dry climate will be quite different from putting a ton of CO2 in the Netherlands. Will the framework account or take that into account as well?
Yeah, so one of the main innovations that we have in our framework are standardized baselines. So we want to say, okay, for a certain region, what is the average carbon removal for a certain soil type? And if we can establish that, you have the regional differentiation. Of course, from a climate perspective, you also want to privilege the low-cost solutions and the most effective ones. So you need to balance that.
Yeah, okay. I think that's interesting. I think you had a good example. Yeah, go.
Oh, yeah. Well, I think you really need to harness the management skills of the farmers, because he knows best what works on his soils. And we have had a nice example in a project in the Netherlands, where we had a farmer who worked the last 25 years diligently on providing more biomass towards his compost and nature grass towards his fields. And he built up a significant amount of topsoil. But it was hard to measure compared to the neighbor that did it another way. But his results, his farm looked much better, and his moisture resilience was much better in the field, and the yields were much higher. But it was difficult to measure, because on the standard analysis from the field, he only had 0.1% higher soil organic matter. So he was also almost discouraged by those measurements. But when we took a look in the soil, and we actually dug a hole and saw for ourselves how much different his soil was compared to the one at his neighbor's field, then you see the results of those 25 years of consistently adding those biomass streams. And he believed in his idea to do that, and he invested in that, and he got the end results. But it took quite a while, and it was hard to measure. So
it was mostly hard to measure, because in generally, if we take a soil sample for the first 30 centimeters, 30 centimeters, whereas this farmer would have a depth of a profile up to 70 centimeters organic matters in his soil. So that was the main difference.
That was the main difference.
The volume in the top layer, but so the differentiation, so the adjustment of the measurement and MRV, I think that's a research topic in itself.
I mean, this is why I'm so excited about EGP Soil, about the soil mission, because this is what we want to know, or what science tells us, so that you've now explained several ways how you can measure more soil carbon. And this is what we would expect that you tell us which is the best, more reliable measurement that we can do. What is the best indicator? And those methods we will take forward. And of course, some I think are easier to measure. I've already said, like above ground biomass, agroforestry with earth observation. I think also rewetting of peatlands, controlling the water table. This is things we understand already quite well. For mineral soils, we may need a bit more of research, but I think for me this goes hand in hand because you also need more sampling to know that better. So there will be a certain scaling up phase over the next 5 years where I would hope we can already finance more and more farmers, and by that then also learn much more about the monitoring, so that by 2030, which we've already set out several times as an ambition, by 2030 we should be ready to really empower every farmer to take control of their greenhouse gas balance.
Yeah, okay. So I think that's nice. And I think some things that the farmers could feed in themselves through, for instance, the national hubs or what will become the soil mission mirror groups will be their experience and showing it, such that an example like Gerben just provided of this farmers looking at the depth of his soil profile to capture the carbon. That's a very important element. I would like for the slide, I would like to go to the next slide where people could put in their questions for the panelists moving on. It's not needed to keep that on screen, but really want to encourage people to have their questions ready because we now move to the next part of the panel discussion, and that will be a little bit of discussion between Diego and Kirsten. Welcome also to this part of the panel. Let's start, Diego. You are there on behalf of the Spanish National Research Council, and you are the program owner of EGP Soil. In that role, you are kind of, a bridge between the regional soil needs, so the stakeholders, and the feedback that you give at a national policy level to EU policies. How does that work for you, and how did the National Hub support you in your work?
Well, thanks a lot, Saskia. Also, thanks a lot for inviting us representing the program owners for the AGP Soil. Also, I'm here on behalf of the Spanish Ministry of Science, University and Innovation. Answering your question, I think it's in two ways mainly. So it works in two directions. We definitely are able participating in this program to provide advice to the AGP governing board on which are the national priorities in terms of research and innovation on this topic, so that we ensure there is a good alignment and our priorities are indeed uptaken by the researchers of this program. So it is very useful for us to be part of the program, but also at the same time, it is also very good because we then are able to directly uptake the results that the researchers are obtaining in this program in a way that we could provide advice for policy and legislation on the national and regional level back in our country. So we have direct access to those results, quantification, and it is definitely very, very important. And in terms of the question about the national hubs are indeed a multidisciplinary team where, for instance, in our case at the Spanish Ministry of Science, we are able to connect also with colleagues at the Ministry of Agriculture, the Ministry of Environment. So we are all together in a forum where we can discuss about the relevant issues on the ground, which are the main priorities envisioned by farmers, by practitioners indeed, and then we can translate that properly into research gaps, and so our researchers can really investigate on those aspects that are really needed by the end users indeed.
Okay, yeah, thank you. So Kirsten, you are kind of in control of what's going on in the soil mission. Can you briefly introduce what the soil mission actually is, and can you explain what does the soil mission do to facilitate this implementation on the ground of EU policies, EU ambitions? And how do you actually reach the farmer or maybe other soil managers?
Yeah, and thanks a lot, Saskia. And for me, of course, it's a special pleasure having been responsible or being responsible for EJP and now for the soil mission, kind of also make this transition. And it's great to see what Anne has said. What are your conclusions? Closer stakeholder involvement, impact on the ground is important. So basically the soil mission is the answer to that, I would say, because it's really taking what we do, action on soil and not only in research and innovation, to the next level. And first of all, for us, it was already a challenge to get the soil, let's say, community out of a rather, let's say, niche corner in terms of attention, out of to a different level and a different light of attention, and really get a movement on soil going, not only in research and innovation, it's rooted where we come from, but also creating impact with all the stakeholders on the ground. And that's actually what the mission is, the mission to make EU soils healthy again. And the actions are rooted in research and innovation. So we work more on areas where we don't know enough yet. Also socio-economic research is quite important. But what is key, and this is why the mission also has as a tagline or as the, let's say, the ultimate game, the setting up of 100 lighthouses and living labs, so which really means genuine stakeholder involvement from the ground, bottom up, working on a given soil problem. By the way, agricultural, forestry and urban soils. We're not focusing on agricultural soils exclusively, so it's really a comprehensive approach, but really starting in all agro-pedoclimate conditions in whole of Europe, action going. A given farmer with a problem on a field, teaming up with the research innovators, with a business, whoever is responsible, working on a solution on a field, in a forest, in an urban gardening environment, whatever it can be. And 100 living labs and lighthouses might at first look not very ambitious in terms of numbers, but as this means a set of more than 1,000 testing sites on the ground which actually do that, it's something that will create actually what you have been asking for, I think. Impact on the ground, making a move, and then getting others around inspired. And I think what the Soil Mission also does is what is the task, not only look into research and innovation, but also link it to other big programs. In my case, of course, the Common Agricultural Policy, which is key. And there we've also managed to get into the CAP strategic plans in a way that we have a possibility of linking the living labs experimentation to a scaling up of issues under the CAP with CAP funding, through another set of more than 1,000 operational groups working under the European Innovation Partnership with the Living Lab practices, scaling up technologies, what has been found. And that gives a critical mass, I think, all over Europe. The third part, Christian has mentioned it, is monitoring, of course. So if we don't really know how we define a healthy soil, or an unhealthy one for that matter, so it's really important to set the indicators and then monitoring. So it's been said, sampling is costly, so we have to find a way of how to do that at a different scale and really use the same, so don't compare apples with pear, use the same methods and indicators all over Europe to really make a sound judgment. And last but not least, coming back again, also I think to impact, stakeholder involvement is soil literacy. This is also something that the Soil Mission works on, creating really movement into education, into primary schools, trying to design syllabi, get soil advising, farm advice out there, getting soil ambassadors, getting the farmers, getting a critical mass of people, persons, citizens, stakeholders that get involved and that we reach with the soil as a general matter. So this is what the soil mission does, quite ambitious. We have 10 years and we will be measured against our own key performance indicators. Let's see.
Yeah, but it's great in its ambition itself. I'm very happy with all the efforts of the soil mission to really put soils as the foundation of our existence, but also as a means, as a solution. And I think that's very, very important in that relation. So if I look at these 100 living labs and lighthouses, I assume there will be also some kind of collaboration across Europe. And I think EGP Soil, Diego, maybe you can share some of your experience of what this EU-wide collaboration has given at least the research community, because that's what we started with in EGP Soil. How has this European-wide collaboration worked for you? Has it brought you new insights or new ideas, opportunities?
Well, for us, participating in the AGP soil is really relevant and very important because indeed our scientists, researchers have the possibility to gain access to, for instance, long-term soil research studies. Normally, we are able to fund research that can only last for 2-3 years. And we know that when we are dealing with aspects related to soil carbon accumulation and storage, longer-term data are really important. So through this action that will last 5 years, indeed our researchers have the possibility to continue the research for a longer time. And also, because of this long-term approach, here models and simulations are important to derive trajectory for the future. And for those models to be robust, we really need to validate them under different scenarios, different climatic scenarios, different soil scenarios. So participating in a EU-based project, we have access to very different climatic conditions, as we were saying before, Finland, Spain, Central Europe. So we have very diverse situations, and this will allow indeed to derive more robust models, to derive more robust trajectories that will indeed think that will be translated to better policies and better advices. So this is extremely important. And also the cooperation among researchers, sharing their know-how, also for the young generation to have the possibility to do like postdoctoral studies or even PhD studies across research institutes all over Europe in the field of soil research is something extremely important. So we are able indeed to take more advantage of the facilities, technical facilities, research instruments, platforms available all over Europe thanks to this program.
Okay, thank you. So I think it's not really common to when you are in Spain to look at a long-term field experiment in Finland to get some insights, different climatic conditions, but there are still a lot of lessons learned. So uncommon collaborations, unusual collaborations, some exploring some new sites. Kirsten, can you explain a little bit, because the missions are kind of a new instrument for Europe to run. What has been your experience with the unusual collaborations that you experienced through the soil mission?
I think that's a very good question, because it's true that, first of all, I mean, what we try to do in content terms, trying to pull as much as possible all possible actions on all levels, on soils, under one roof, is also, or has to even be probably mirrored with another way of working. So it's not possible that everybody works in a compartmentalized ways on their own issues. It's really important to bring this together. And in terms of unusual collaboration, it's always good to start with oneself. evolve, I think. And I think we've done that maybe at commission level, that we do not work as we used to have before. So everybody works in their little corner, but that from the outset we start to work together. So we had co-creation there as one of the keywords on one of the word clouds. So this is one thing that we really do. It's not just a word, so that we try to, for instance, on the work program in research and innovation, that Christian's colleagues work together with us from the start. So we design the things together instead of everybody does it and then we consult each other in the end. It's really a co-development of what we do. For instance, on carbon farming, we work like this together, and we work in the different commission departments like that differently. Also, when I look at the soil monitoring and resilience directive now, it's the same thing. We set it up together, the policy framework, and we inbuild straight away the research and innovation perspective into this from the start. So to make sure that the indicators that actually we developed and also discussed with the European Environmental Agency gets not lost, gets taken up again. So we build on this. So then furthermore, I think unusual is also what Diego has already said. I can spin back that we try to mirror this cooperation also at member state level. So it's not usual, and I'm coming from a member state administration, so I'm allowed to say it. It's not usual that the agricultural ministry works closely with the environmental ministry and with the other institutions around. But for the matter of soil and the soil mission, we actually do that, and we have some very good examples in the member state that really follow up on this. And that's really important to get some action, some comprehensive action going. And then also in terms of the stakeholder, the Living Lab approach, a lot of people were thinking in the beginning this is just another set of demo or experimental farms. No, it's not. So it's really something different. But that also means that scientists, for instance, it's not all about scientific publications only. It's also about the merit that you get when you go on the ground and you actually work with people on the field. It's unusual, and it's an unusual form of collaboration, I would think. So I think you can decline this at the different levels, and also sometimes for us, it's not so easy, let's say, because it's not the typical research and innovation actions that we do. It's different. So, for instance, if we design the territorial management agreements that we do now, so also participate, get the regions, the local level, get everybody together to design an agreement on what action is required on soils. This is also something that we not do as a typical research and innovation action. Talking about unusual collaboration, I think there's quite some food for thought there.
Yeah, I think it also addresses nicely one of the questions from the audience, and that I would like to see if maybe Anna is willing to answer this first question, and then after Anna, I would like to hear maybe from you, Christian. How do you see the role of scientists in putting this knowledge forward between policy development and engaging stakeholders?
Well, first of all, I think our role as researchers is to underpin the policies and to provide policymakers with the answers that they can use. So we've in all the discussions we were with the DGs, we've been talking about pre-digested information, so that in some way we'll need to translate the basic knowledge into something which is suitable for policymakers. So there will be clear answers, sometimes maybe not more black and white than like normally scientists are very good in posing new questions instead of answering the old ones. So we need to be very good in there. And I think that with EGP Soil, we've been playing this role as a facilitator to start this discussion with the stakeholders on the policies, and also actually informing our national stakeholders of the developments in Europe, because they somehow don't hear that a lot.
Okay. So, Christian, what would you expect from scientists to how to include or engage stakeholders in their messaging to you, maybe as a
I I have very concrete demands. For example, I would like to have, by the end of 24, I would like to have a draft methodology for soil carbon in mineral soils. And on your example, Gerben, is like there, is there perfect? So this is what I want to know. Is it possible? Which indicator to use? Or is there something where we say, okay, this is still not yet there at the sufficient confidence level, so maybe we rather start with something activity-based, or have a hybrid system, activity-based plus measurement. So, but the earlier we can get their concrete methodology out there, the more data we can generate, and the more we can get into this. So from my side, from this carbon farming side, there are like very concrete demands on something maybe quite applied, but everyone who wants to contribute to this, who knows a methodology for how to reliably measure soil carbon,
is welcome.
Very welcome. We have an expert group on that that we do very transparently. So all, also from the audience,
All ideas.
all ideas, more than welcome.
Okay, so I think that's a nice invitation, and I think somewhere through the EU portal people can put their ideas, or through the expert group. I see another questions from the audience, and that's a little bit, are the policymakers' approaches in line with farmers and people needs? Are we aware of protests regarded? Do we have a set of idealistic goals, or are solutions implementable? Is there somebody here willing to address that questions?
Maybe I can address that question from the side of the farmer and the contractor. I think, of course, farmers are not alone in the world. They see their role as managers of soils on a good basis, and they want to give their farm to their children. And I think that's really relevant. And if the goal of carbon farming collides with their own goals of having healthy soils, it can support each other. It doesn't really necessarily is one or the other. And I think it's important that the European community, or the European Commission, does not dictate what the farmer has to do day to day on his field, but just facilitate them in having a good market that provides also some financial rewards towards the farmers. And I think then farmers will be very interested in investigating those possibilities for their own company, or for their own fields.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I think, Kirsten, maybe you want to follow up on that, but also maybe could you include in your answer also a little bit about the timescale of research versus policy? Because I think you are in the middle of that, with the answers that the mission will provide, maybe.
Yeah. Well, okay. On the first level, of course, I mean, we're very acutely aware in our day-to-day business of what our farmers' problems and farmers' needs. I mean, are the goals that we set idealistic? So the goals are always also a marching line where to go to, of course. But a lot of things can be attained. So, I mean, the examples that you gave, for instance, are very good. And the experience that we had with the European Innovation Partnership Agriculture under the Common Agricultural Policy, which was basically building the bridge to research and innovation. It was extremely difficult to implement at start, also to get the administrative arrangements going, but it's developed despite the odds, and also because in innovation, the outcome is never sure. So you invest in something where you do not, this is not necessarily what we do under the Common Agricultural Policy, to be sure. But actually, just the way of doing this and working together and bringing together farmers and innovators and other people on the ground has been a tremendous success. And with Zero, we've been over through 3,200 projects. So there's really a mood for this. There's an appetite for this. So I think with this, it's not so idealistic what we want to achieve in terms of soil health, if that was the question. So it's really something where we can start. Linking on the timeline, soils are very slow to act. Okay, that we know. But even there, and it's true, the timeline. I mean, you have, if you talk about general research, of course, the timelines are very long. So it's not something we can talk even in the 10 years to come. But when we talk about applied agricultural research, or about what we have already. We have worked for 50 years on soils. We have things out there. You have developed the tools. You have developed the practices and the technologies. Our challenge is maybe in there, we don't have so much an issue of the timeline. So because the results are there, it's more of bringing these that have been generated by a timeline of 50 years of soil-related research in Europe, but bringing what we have already as harvest to the ground. So there, I don't see necessarily. We have that for the policymakers, sometimes even our policymakers, that we cannot come with a ready-made solution yet with a new problem that comes up. But these are not necessarily new problems that we talk about. So I think this is not incompatible.
Okay, thank you.
Can I come in on this
very briefly because we're
because I think it's not about policy, it's about climate change. We don't have time.
Yeah.
We cannot wait another 20, 30 years before we become active. We have to act now. And we have this problem in all areas where we do climate policy, but it can be done. We've changed the European car industry within 5 years, from fossil to electric. So speed is a necessity.
Speed is a necessity, and learn by doing on the way is, I think, an important part. I would like to invite Anna to see if she can summarize the main findings of this panel, because we're almost at the end of that panel already.
Yes.
Please go ahead.
Thank you, Saskia. It was a very interesting discussion. And, there is an urgency in the policies for, to combat climate change. And we talked here about the carbon farming policy to be ready by 2030. But I think what I really like is that there are things being developed, but there is also flexibility in this development. So it can be accounted for different regions, for different also interests and conflicting interests. So there is room for flexibility, which is very good. What is also very nice to hear for a researcher is to see that your research is really being used. So that's really great. So co-creation, I think, is a very important part here. Trust is the key. As for the soil mission, we want to have healthy soils by 2030. And again, creating impact with actions is something new, not just creating new results, research results. So with all stakeholders together through living labs, but also through national hubs, in this case through EGP Soil National Hubs, but also Soil Mission is going to develop mirror groups and to allow for this stakeholder involvement and the co-creation, also very important there. And I think that national hubs is a good instrument. We could show that it's a good instrument for this co-creation, and national hubs could also play a role in these mirror groups, in the development of the mirror groups. And I would also like to say that yesterday we finished a policy brief on how EGP Soil National Hubs could be used as an instrument for the Soil Mission and for stakeholder engagement for policy development. So
okay. Thank you. And I want to thank the whole panel for your active contribution. Thank you very much. Thank you to the audience for answering the Slido questions and asking questions to the panel members. And with this, I would love to end this session. Thank you very much for watching. And I'm very much looking forward to further up this discussion and see what will be the outcomes of the soil mission and the carbon farming framework.